All right, part two. So I'm gonna try to make it snappier this time. So the opportunity that I was talking about in the video prior to this, or the opportunity that I was about to start talking about in the video prior to this one was like when I was at work recently, or like a week or two ago, a woman came in who had an art studio. As an artist, we were able to discuss different like things. We had a long talk, which led to her asking to see some of my pieces. I showed her the pieces that I worked on, and she instantly took interest. She left me her card. Then a week later, she came by again, asking. I thought it was a. I didn't take it seriously initially. I thought it was a bit of a farce because some of the numbers she was throwing around just seemed a bit inflated, and the people that she said she knew just seemed grand. But she came by again, telling me more and more grand things that she could offer and grand things that she had done. This time with some references to kind of back her up. Now, it was then that, I took her a lot more seriously, but she preferenced this opportunity with not just like, she wasn't going to be essentially a Patreon. She wasn't just going to give me a bunch of canvases and paint and say, do what you want. She wanted to offer me the chance to essentially do a residence kind of experience in her studio in the middle of the city where rent is super high, and she was gonna offer me a discounted, quote, discounted um, rate for how much I would spend on rent in this studio. She said that it would be less than $1,000. I think for somebody else, anybody else that isn't working like a part time job, barely scraping it, that's like a sick opportunity. But less than 1,000 isn't a deal for me. Like I'm looking at her like, what could you possibly? Who do you think I am in the grand scheme of things? And granted, the numbers that she was talking about that she was gonna be able to push the artwork for seemed worth it, but like I'm barely making it in my, above $1,000 apartment over here right now. I don't have an extra $1,000 to throw at this opportunity. And the way art works, most of the times at least, or at least the way I've seen it done, just because you have the space doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna sell the art. I've done my fair share of art shows where people have come, shaken, like they've shook my hand, they've told me I was cool and I did a great job, and then they left without purchasing a single thing. And after periods of time later, now I have to take the artwork back to my apartment, having spent the time and the money to, keep it in the certain space. It's worth it for some, is not for others, because I do think notoriety plays a huge role in that, along with serendipity. People need to know who you are, or the person that's trying to promote you needs to have a huge promotional budget. What this person was offering me was an opportunity to showcase my art in a space where I would be able to meet fancy rich people that want to, buy an artist from, underprivileged black folk like myself. With that said, I'm looking at her like, if I'm spending money out, if I go in debt for this, I'm not gonna be jolly or friendly in these spaces. I'm not just gonna try to tell my story or anything like that. I'm gonna be upset if people talk to me and they are hesitant on purchasing this artwork that I can't afford to make regularly. And also, we ended up talking a little bit more, and we were doing like a virtual appraisal of some of the work that I did, or some of the work that I had to show her. And she was asking, oh, it's acrylic. Why not do oil? How big is the canvas? The biggest thing I have in here is like a 3x2 or like a 4x2, I believe. I'm not doing grand, huge canvases. And what she's offering is huge floor space and high ceilings and the opportunity to really get down and dirty and make really, really big, impressive art. The thing that people don't also talk about enough is how expensive canvases, paint, and just so many other materials tend to be for anybody that's trying to really make a name in this game of life and art. All of these supplies cost buku bucks. Like the acrylic paint that I buy from the binders near me, that stuff is already, a strain in my wallet. Stepping up the gouache paints was a huge deal, and I still feel the pain of buying a pack of gouache. Oil paint, fucking oil paints, that's big bucks right there that I don't got, and like you can't like make it easily. I know, like I learned in school, like they were making it with like an egg yolk and some pigments from flowers or something. Who the fuck has time to do all of that? I mean, I guess if you really wanted it bad enough, you go rob a garden for some petals and grind them up into a powder. But eggs in this economy for paint, like that's just it would feel selfish, and it'll feel too self-indulgent to try to do things like that. I'm in a fixed income bracket right now. There is very little wiggle room for me to be doing things like that. The most I could do at this point are videos on TikTok and YouTube. Like these are like this is kind of the space that I have to showcase my art, and it's free. And that's the main reason why I'm here. This is the space where I can talk to you when I'm in the best of moods, where I can waste my time, you can waste my time, we can all waste time on TikTok. And it's it's one of those things that just circling back to the whole point of this like rant about opportunities is that people tend to tell you all the time that when opportunity strikes you have to strike hard, and like all of these like quotes and sayings about it. Like opportune timing plays a bigger role than opportunity. Like preparation meeting timing is what luck is at the end of the day. She came by to talk to me about this opportunity while I was working a job that just doesn't give me enough resources to do such a thing. I can't give her like 800 bucks a month to put my art up when I need money for, everything else. Like I would starve to death if I had to do that. And it takes me back once again to, the rant that I did earlier about the time that I was working more in TV and film and stuff. I remember people would tell me all the time about how they would, work extra hard on set so that they can meet these producers and directors and show them just all the type of stuff they had. And I would always think I wasn't working as hard as everybody else because, people would just say they would get there early, stay super late. It wasn't until later in hindsight that you realize that some of these people, the only expenses that they had in those university days were phone bill, whatever fast food they were gonna eat, and like Uber and Lyft fees. I was paying rent. Like I had so much other things that I had to do. The sheer thought of showing up early when I could just get a couple extra minutes of sleep, or staying late when traffic was gonna get bad, or just all of that extra stuff that they were able to do. I'm working two jobs and going to school. Like it just wasn't something I could do, and at that time that wasn't an opportunity for me. And you know what? The video is about to come to an end again. I will see if I gotta marinate on this to see if I'm gonna make a part three. 3-part 10-minute videos is just wicked work. And I'm barely getting views on like 15-second videos. So if you stayed this long, God loves you. I love you more though. If it's possible, like, follow, share, comment, subscribe, or do the thing for me. All right. I'll see you in the next one, maybe. Peace.